Welcome back. Listen, this is another special episode of the Monetize Your Ministry podcast. So, on September 25th of this year, 2023, we did the Monetize Your Ministry Summit. We had some amazing guests, 6 presenters who all brought it. Now, this time, what we're doing is we're taking their presentations and we're presenting it to you, our podcast listeners and viewers. And last week, we did Dr. Amber Wright. You got to go check out that. This week, we're sharing Pierre Quinn. Listen, Pierre Quinn blew my mind. The chat blew up. It almost broke the internet during his presentation during the Monetize Your Ministry Summit. And Pierre shared how you can take the things that are used inside of one arena and make a difference in the marketplace. And so you want to check out these next few minutes. It's only 23-minute episode that Pierre is going to share his wisdom. You got to check this out. Listen, next year, we're also doing another Monetize Your Ministry Summit. And I'd love to know who are some of the presenters you would like to have in that summit. So drop it in the comments, DM me, message me. Tell me who are some of the presenters you want to hear in the next Monetize Your Ministry Summit. All right, listen, let's go check out this episode with Pierre Quinn. All right, let's bring up our next presenter. Amazing speaker, amazing coach, amazing leadership expert. Pierre Quinn is our next presenter. Let's invite him now to the stage for the Monetize Your Ministry Summit. Pierre Quinn.
Sir,
how you
glad
doing,
to be here, man? I'm excited. I've been sitting in the back, taking notes like crazy, trying to be in the chat. Like it's been good today. It's been good.
Sir, yes, sir. Listen, I'm gonna start you off with this question. Where in the world are you right now?
Inside joke. I get it, right? Yeah, I'm at home, man.
Foster relationships that lead to personal and professional transformation. What you're doing and how your ministry has moved into business spaces.
Yeah, I mean, let's hop in the time machine a little bit and give you a piece of the backstory. Undergrad and graduate degree in communication. I was working in fundraising and development, and undergrad, everybody was like, "Yo, just come to seminary with us." During that time, you might have been one of those people too. And I was like, "No, that's not for me." Eventually, kind of circled back, ended up in theological seminary, got my old job back teaching freshman communication courses. The end of my seminary experience, the chair of the communication department at my alma mater was like, "Stay here, we'll give you a job." And I was like, "Nope." I went to seminary for 3 years. I'm gonna be somebody's pastor. Somebody somewhere. I'm pastoring somewhere. And she said, "Okay, well, can you give us your final lecture, your philosophy of teaching and learning from your experience of teaching the freshman communication course?" And I gave that talk, and someone afterwards, they walked up to me with this question: "Hey, have you ever thought about becoming a professional speaker?" I had not at all. Not at all. And they said, "You should think about it because we feel like you have something here."
Yeah.
So I enter into pastoral ministry, like my first assignment in Kentucky, pastoring a small church. I enter into it with a sense of duality. Like, I'm here to pastor this church and lead this small congregation. And there's also something that my community has recognized and called out that I need to respond to as well. So they really started at the same time, and we've been bringing them to bear and really leveraging them off of each other for quite a few years now.
I love it. So I feel like this is a relay, right? So Dr. Amber talked about getting your message, like clarifying like what it is they struggle with and what you provide. And Athena just shared with us putting it into a book. And the reason I bring up a book is because I feel like that was one of your first things that I saw you do to take your ministry out into the marketplace was through a book. So kind of talk about that and how you made some shifts to, as you said, not just be for this congregation, but move what I have out into the marketplace.
Man, I wish I had this summit how many years ago now, that when I first started this idea of crafting your core message or your key message. And the core message or key message for me was that new leaders can have incredible impact. That was important for me because I, in sort of the denominational construct that we come from, I was labeled as a second career pastor, which means I didn't do an undergrad in religion or theology. I came to ministry after another career. So I'm starting pastoral ministry at 31 years old. And, having worked professionally, having done all this schooling, and I enter into my congregational space, and I'm still viewed as a kid. I got 2 kids, I have a wife, 2 kids, professional experience. I'm 31 years old. I'm still viewed as a kid, and they're looking at my lack of pastoral experience. So my thinking is, okay, how can I demonstrate that even though I'm new to this particular role, there's still enough for me to have incredible impact? And I started sort of journaling the same things that you heard in the summit so far.
Yeah.
I started journaling and sharing thoughts around what does it mean to have impact as a new leader. And those coalesced into a book, 99 pages or so.
Amen.
Of a cobbled together, a terribly cobbled together off a shoestring budget of $200 book product. And that key collateral, core message to key collateral, that key collateral piece had unlocked so many doors that I'm still reaping the benefits of scraping a few $100s together and coming up with a book.
Pierre, so I want to go a few ways with this. We're talking, This is the Monetize Your Ministry Summit. And someone might say, I don't know where my ministry is. I don't know what's my thing. And as I heard Athena's story, heard Amber's story, I'm hearing your story. The common thread is you're finding this based on a struggle that you had as a leader. Like, I'm a young leader, I'm underestimated, whatever, or however, right? Put in this box. And so I needed help. So finding help from me helped me to find help for others. And let's talk to someone maybe on that connection between what your problem is and the problem that you will help other people solve.
Man, there's so much here, right? So I would say first, the thing that we do is we minimize the thing that we're great at.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that comes easy for us, if you describe it as a skill because you've cultivated over time, or if you describe it as a talent because you inherit it from your parents, or it's a gift because it doesn't have any other origin except that it was just placed inside of you. Quite often we minimize that thing because we do it so well, because it comes so naturally to us. We place a low amount of value on that thing. And in many cases, that's the thing. When we talk about monetizing your ministry, and I know you put it out on Facebook before, how do you define ministry? If you look up the word, the New Testament, the first usage, the greatest usage of the New Testament word of ministry is service.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that you do that comes so easily, that comes so naturally, that is a service or benefit to other people, in many cases is the area that you need to focus on. So let's go back to teaching again.
Go ahead.
I was teaching undergrad courses, and it was a struggle for me because of, just kind of making the pivot to an educational environment. So I started trying to figure out what's the one thing I can do that will allow me to end my classes just well. Even if I fumble through the lecture, the key concepts, how can I end the class well? And I started focusing on this idea of, here's one last story where I take the concept and I wrap it inside of a short story or anecdote or something I saw in the news or on social media, and I would give that to my students. And I was teaching interpersonal communication. And what started to happen was, inside of this struggle of trying to teach this class, what started to happen was, at the end of class, like it's a 3-hour class, at the end of class, every student sat up.
Story time. Here we go.
I was after a couple of weeks, I was like, what is going on? Like, people are checked out during the lecture. We're going through the materials. Why does everybody sit up at the end? And one of my students, he said, oh, that's easy. We know you're going to hit us with that one last thing. And we're looking forward to that one last story, that one last word, that one last perspective. He said, some of us just come to class for that final 3 to 4 minutes. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
And I started to say, okay, so there is an opportunity here to craft a short message that leaves a lasting impact on a handful of people. What else can I do with that besides just giving a lecture or even the closing story of a sermon, right? What else can I do besides land that here? And I really started to work on that particular skill of crafting a short, punchy message and allowing it to really resonate with people where they are in the moment.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Find your thing, but then you're working it. All right, Pierre.
Yeah.
I started with something, so people know that God has blessed you, and you're one of you're now listed as one of the leadership speakers to watch. Like it's out there.
Yeah.
How do we get from what we talk about, the small church district, to that? Give us some of the practical steps. Someone wants to know, how can I monetize as a speaker and as a presenter? How do we do that?
Man, listen, I can't wait for the next summit because I know it's going to be a part 2 to some of this. I gotta demystify, in a sense, some of the things that we go through contextually, people from a church background. And for a lot of us, not all of us, and if this doesn't apply to you, tuck it in your pocket and pass it along to somebody else that may need to hear it. For a lot of us, we grow up in church environments that are not incubators of excellence. We're tolerant of heart. So because you can't sing that well, but you got a heart for singing, so we're gonna let you sing. You can't really put a message together that well,
right?
But you got a heart to give a word to God's people, so we will give you the platform and allow you to share from your heart. What that can do sometimes is convince you that that's where you're supposed to be. Now that's a very dangerous place, because the marketplace does not respond to heart as much as it does to excellence with heart.
Woo. Okay.
Yeah.
Somebody said, say it louder for the folks in the front. Say it for the
marketplace
for the
does not respond to heart as much as it does excellence with heart. So what was happening is that I was stepping into places and people were calling out, literally calling out, this was a good message and people at my job need to hear it. This is a good message and people at my community center need to hear it. And I had an option. Do I lean into, and Os Guinness in his book, The Call, the first book that I read in seminary, says that the community that you are part of will call out your giftedness.
Say that.
It will speak to it. It will identify it. And I was under the assumption that my gift of storytelling and the ability to see things in a text and to put pieces together, I was nurtured in this idea that the only place for that is behind the pulpit. So when people start calling out, can you share a message here? Can you share a message there? There are parts of me that said this was wrong because it wasn't how I was shaped. It wasn't what I was used to. And then I started thinking about all the stories, and I had so many stories that I wanted to share, but I started thinking about the one time Jesus is with his disciples and there's another group of people who are preaching and the disciples are like, well, they ain't with us.
Yeah.
Did we shut them down? And what if those who are not with us, what if the designation of those individuals are the individuals who are not necessarily called to pulpits and large religious conferences and Bible studies, but you're called to be salt and light through a message of relationships, through a message of fertility, through a message of publishing, through a message of team building.
Leadership.
That's your way of leadership. That's your way to be salt and light. In fact, I love how John Maxwell puts it. He said, my core message is Jesus. Leadership is just my hook. So you come in for leadership, but you're going to get some Jesus.
Yeah.
And I learned just through time, Some of my best leadership presentations, don't tell nobody, come on, I know your audience is going to share.
Yeah.
Some of my best leadership presentations are actually sermons that weren't that great. And I was able to repurpose them.
Mm.
And here's what I found. Just because you take chapter and verse and biblical reference out of it doesn't mean that the Holy Spirit has been removed from it. So the same spirit that helps you craft a sermon is the same spirit that helps you craft a core message to your audience in the marketplace.
Man, I love that. I love that. Listen, somebody put some fire emojis, put a yes in the comments, put something in the comments for what we just heard there. Because when you said God's spirit works with you when you're out in the marketplace, sharing on leadership, sharing on your core message, helping people get their money right, keep helping people with their parenting, without chapter and verse, God's still there with you and he's moving with you. And I believe that wholeheartedly. Listen, y'all, let's get some questions for Pierre. We can't let you leave without peppering you with some questions. I have a question. How do I get to Kuwait? That's my question.
Yo, so here's the thing about Kuwait, right? And this is the thing that makes communicating in the marketplace slightly different than from a standardized ministry place. That when we talked about this before, as a preacher, right? As a preacher, as a Bible teacher, you know, as an elder, as a leader, it is socially a social faux pas to ask to speak.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot, it's a social faux pas. If you ask somebody, hey, can I preach?
No.
Hey, can I share a message?
Yeah.
It's either going to be no, or there's going to be some people going to be skeptical. Because if you're that, this is the assumption. If you're that good, you don't have to ask.
Mm-hmm.
See, in the marketplace, it's different. We only know how good you are because of your willingness to share the impact that you can make. If you're good, you will be found, but you have to position yourself to be found.
Mm-hmm.
So I was working with a social media coach and people were asking, hey, if something is not my area of giftedness, what do I do? You invest.
Mm-hmm.
You invest the money. I'll put it a different way. The lower your confidence, the more money you need to invest.
That's good.
The lower your confidence, the more money you need to invest. Working with a social media coach, we were working specifically on LinkedIn, and he challenged me. He said, my coach was Rob Youngblood. He said, YB, he challenged me specifically. He said, if you're that good at teaching leadership, teach leadership live on LinkedIn. If you believe that you're that good, if you believe that God has given you these messages, teach live on LinkedIn.
Hold on. Someone is asking the how. This is, I'm going to tell you, watching Pierre's story, this is his how. And I want you to talk about even when you first started, like the audience you had. So keep going, because this is your how.
Yeah. He said, my coach challenged me to teach live on LinkedIn, and I was going live on LinkedIn. I called it Sunday Night Live. I was given 10 to 15 minutes on a whiteboard, take a simple leadership concept and diagram it on a whiteboard and explain it. And I was getting 5, 6, 10 people watching. So you can't judge stuff by numbers, especially if you're a believer. Numbers never lie until they do.
Yeah.
And we can monetize a channel. We can buy bots and algorithms, but numbers do lie. Yeah. So I kept teaching, and then one day someone hopped into my DMs on LinkedIn and they said, we see something here. Are you willing to partner with us? Well, I didn't know the people who were DMing me were the #1 provider of custom executive education in the world. And the director of global educators just happened to be on LinkedIn and stumbled across one of my videos where only 4 people are watching. And she said, that's it. We need that. Fast forward 3 years later with that organization, I started January in Singapore, and 2 weeks ago I was in Kuwait, and I'll be back in Kuwait 2 weeks from now.
Come on, man. Listen, do not despise the day of small beginnings. And what that coach told you to do. If someone's asking the how, find a platform, get a message, begin sharing it. Begin sharing it. Begin sharing it. Find a small audience, share it. Share it with that small audience like it's 1,000 people. Because that's when I would watch your Sunday Night Lives. I'm like, this guy is sharing this. This is great stuff. And he's not like holding back because it's not a lot of people. And I think that's for someone here. Like, don't hold back because who's watching, man. Give what God gave you to whoever is there to hear it, because you never know who's there.
Listen, man, so those are reps for me, right?
Mhm.
As a speaking professor, those are reps, 2 and 3 people, but it's also respecting the gift, respecting the calling as well. So people ask me, so how are you so comfortable in a room of 50? How are you so comfortable in a room of a couple of thousand? Well, when you practice in a room by yourself, when you practice in front of a camera with 3 people,
Yes.
when you practice in a small church with 25 people, you're able to leverage a wider audience because you're so comfortable with being alone with your gift and your creator and practicing your gift as an acknowledgement of your calling. Anybody he adds to the room after that is just a bonus blessing.
I love this. Listen, you know that whenever we get on here, we could talk
Yeah,
all day
man.
long.
Yeah, man.
Listen, as I mentioned, there'll be other opportunities for you to work on what we're talking about here, and we'll share more about that so you have more access. Go ahead, Pierre.
I gotta answer this question, man. Just real quick. Somebody asked, did I have to leave pastoral
Mhm.
ministry to share? Everybody's calling and path is not the same. And
Mhm.
I've shared this story with you, come on, 1,000 times. The only reason why I left pastoral ministry is because it was a divine message.
Wow.
It was not my intent.
Mhm.
They started together. They were going to continue together for the rest of my career. The guy was like, nah, I need you to do something else right now. So you're
Yeah.
still church adjacent. I still maintain a healthy preaching calendar, but my congregations are boardrooms and conferences and classrooms literally around the world.
Yeah. I want you to end on that then. Talk to us about the value that you are seeing in the last
Yeah.
30 seconds,
Yeah.
how ministry is valued in the marketplace. Just talk to us about that.
Listen, man, there are people who are never coming to your church. They're never going to watch your live stream. They're never going to tune into your favorite preacher or to your quote unquote traditional ministry. But spending time with you, sitting in one of your sessions, sitting in one of your talks, sitting in one of your keynotes, they will feel. They won't even know what it is. They won't know how the spirit is touching and connecting with them. But they will feel it in that moment. And I can tell you dozens of stories of people asking for prayer, asking for mentorship, asking for support, asking to be pastored, asking for a chaplain. I don't know quite what this is, but
Yeah.
can I call and just talk to you about what's going on? They're asking for pastoral care and counseling because they've just had an experience with the Holy Spirit and they don't even know what to call it. And that for them has become their church experience.
Pierre, this was awesome. Just give people your Instagram hash or wherever they want them to follow you, because I know LinkedIn is your spot. So tell us.
Yeah, I tell people the second best place to find me is on LinkedIn. I mean, that's how I got discovered in the corporate space. So LinkedIn, Pierre Quinn. It's not a lot of us out there, but if you're not on LinkedIn, hit me up on my website, pierrecquinn.com. Just put it into Google and you'll see my face and click on it.
I love it. Pierre, thank you so much, my friend. This was awesome. Y'all know this is awesome stuff, man. Every speaker is like a relay race, and we're going to continue to build. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for how you are embodying what this whole platform is about, and continue to, man, just let God continue to use you